Why do some people love dictators so much? There is a dictator in my country for 20 years. Some experts says even if the country falls today, there is 35 who will vote for him tomorrow, and that's exactly what happened in the last elections. There are 10 million refugees in the country and they constantly get citizenship for no legal reason for him. It's easier to get votes from them. There was a huge earthquake recently, 50,000 buildings collapsed. If inspections were made, none of them would have been collapsed. It is not known how many people died and the government wasn't there to help people. Still, he got the highest percentage of votes from the cities affected by the earthquake, and also according to official figures, there is an annual inflation of 65, which we know isn't correct. Some claim it's 135. Anyway, there is 1 million more things like that, but in the end he managed to win with 52 in this last election, and he will rule the country for 5 more years. How is that happens? Erdogan won among the undereducated and the religious. Both ate the narrative that Western morals would lead to decadence and downfall, and Erdogan was the bastion to stop it from happening. Democracy is hard, messy, aggravating and complicated. Dictators make it all so simple. I'm just spitballing here. I think it maybe has to do with how utterly and completely unwilling to make any actual decisions many people are. People like this would rather coast along and have someone decide for them. It also aligns with people who generally lack a sense of accountability. If someone decides for them and things go sideways, well, it's not their fault cause they didn't make the decision. Just a hunch of mine, man shrugging. The idea of a strong man resonates with a lot of people. A lot of people just don't care about rights unless it affects them directly, and they often care more about their leader appearing strong than rights or competency. A lot of dictators come to power during times of great stress and fix some issues, then use power and corruption to stay in power past their usefulness. So many older supporters become nostalgic for their early accomplishments and ignore that they haven't done anything beneficial for the past 20 years of their reign. The philosophical argument for dictators is that people are happier when they are led. I think some of it is that even if a dictator is bad, they do still provide some stability to a country, and if overthrown would create a power vacuum that could be worse. We saw some of that in Iraq. Even if there is something better, if there are going to be a few years of chaos to get there, it is sometimes better to stick with known quantity. Like the recent coup attempt in Russia. Putin is horrible, but the guy in charge of the Wagner group was likely worse, so that plus the nukes made it so that him winning may not have been an overall good thing. Like-minded person up to the task of defending the nation from any number of tirelessly convenient bogeymen. Most people just want to live a decent life. Democracies can be inefficient at getting things done because of political deadlock and infighting. Whereas a dictator is capable of getting things done without all of the yellow tape. Also, when dictatorships give the guise of democracy and fair elections, it's just that they're likely manipulating the vote results so they stay in power. I think most people vote against the enemy party. Any person their party puts up for election has to be better than anybody from the enemy party. That, and people want to feel superior to somebody. It's not about dictators per se. It's tribalism. The vast majority of people will vote support a member of their tribe against a person from another tribe regardless of how bad their guy is. You may think these are not related, but Idi Amin still is popular in his village and tribal region style and still has some following in Georgia and Russia. About 35 of Americans still believe that Obama is a Muslim and was born in Kenya, and about the same percentage still believe that Saddam was behind in 9/11. In dictatorship, nothing that happens is your fault. You can live like a child, completely abandoning responsibility, instead focus of having fun. It's easy. In modern times, it's usually because democracy doesn't succeed in certain places like how it should have, or certain governments just absolutely fail thanks to rampant corruption on all levels, and the only feasible way for that to change, for some people, is through a hard-hand leader that has a lot of centralized power, And when some people are born into it, they view the change of leader or into democracy as too much of a risk for the current status quo, especially when the dictator in their eyes is hurting the right people. A great but somewhat dated book, science-wise, on this subject is called Escape from Freedom by Eric Fromm. Still relevant as long as people love dictators. Cuban American here. My people love all dictators as long as he or she on rare occasions allows us to keep our shit. Anything else is socialism. They love authoritarian for the illusion of surety, which is funny since all they bring is chaos. Insecure people need protection from threats that the dictator convinces them will destroy their life as they know it. My thought is that a democracy sometimes allows the other side to have power, and some people just can't abide by that. Putting a dictator in power, although they wouldn't call him that thinks like you do, assures you that they won't ever get in power. Because they are somehow directly or indirectly connected to and benefit from the patronage underpins virtually every dictatorship that's ever been. It should be noted that the democratic process in Turkey is deeply flawed. The Turkish media is heavily controlled by the state, who make sure pretty much only Erdogan is heard. The opposition is also persecuted. The most popular political candidate that could have run against Erdogan was banned from running through a phony conviction on an obviously trumped-up charge. The people who favor the dictator benefit when that dictator is in power. With more power, more dictator showers likely supporters with things: more food, money, subsidies. They know people tend to have short memories. He also controls all the media and publicizes his positives and points out the bad of his opponents. If he and his media keeps repeating lies, some people start believing. He uses threats and fear to shut up his opponents. That is why a free press, free speech, not to stop speaking out, is important. Authoritarianism starts with authoritarian culture at home. People who are raised that way tend to be about a dictator. I believe it is a daddy syndrome. People want to feel protected but not have to worry about the ins and outs of the details. Same with other facets of economics and whatever affects them. A man comes along and harnesses those fears and says, I alone can fix this and I got your back, and he is revered for his strength. Does not matter that the incidents that stoke the fears are created by the very same man or party. That seems awfully recent. We heard that rhetoric and the culture wars that ensued. The government you elect is the government you deserve. Thomas Jefferson. This thread reminded me of that quote. Maybe they are comfortable with the devil they know. My theory is that some people have a hard time conceptualizing change that happens slowly over time. Democracy is that slow and messy process where not everyone gets what they want immediately. So they prefer an autocrat that can make things happen by decree. There are father theories, there are God theories. Only a few data points need to be met, for each. Spanking appears enough, sometimes. Commands are plenty for about 50 of people where I am. I'd about other places and races. It's clearly built into humans in order to keep order. I suspect justice is also a very common human quality. But the cultures encourage some traits, and discourage the idea of justice, and better qualities. It suggests selfishness is the prime motivator for skewed moralities. Strict hierarchy is the natural state of affairs. Societies that trend away from that are the odd ducklings when we look at all of human history. Don't mistake my meaning in that it's natural that means it ought to be. If morality means anything, it means acting against the natural inclinations of man. The alpha male leader is what you should expect from our genus and species. That is the way apes organize society. Democracy is an idea based on our intellectual potential. The big brain anomaly. Eventually instinct takes over. If you like the rule and it's with you, you don't have anything to complain, then it's easy to just go along. Combined with stupidity. Morality is very grey and demonization is also a strong power. Even nowadays you see traces of strong authoritarianism. Abortion bans and vaccination mandates on either side of the spectrum.